I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies,
Cookies?
the basketball podcast. I am Ben Detrick. With me, as usual, Jordan Redaelli.
Bellissimo.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Good. See, you can tell by the fact that I'm choking on my vowels.
Just a light cough to start the show.
Yeah, I gotta clear the pipes. That's the wrong expression.
Clear the pipes?
Yeah. It's the wrong. Yeah, for that particular function, I believe that's the wrong one.
How are you, Andrew Kuo?
I'm pretty good. I feel good.
That was convincing.
I'm stressed. I got to leave town tomorrow, so I just.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Japan and Taiwan.
I don't think I even knew where you were going. You've just been sort of alluded to this 2 weeks absence that our listeners can now look forward to and not getting your terrible takes. But you'll be off enjoying your life.
Yeah. I have trouble with traveling, guys. Like, I am not good at maybe not even sure if it's randomness, but unfamiliar situations.
Do you need an assistant when you travel?
Well, the iPhone is amazing, man. I just
heard
have it.
that.
Oh, you and Siri just
I just haven't.
globetrotting.
Remember when we had to travel with maps, like paper maps? I mean, we're old enough, right?
That is a weird change because
Yeah.
I remember being in South America 10 years ago and not having an operational phone and just walking around with a little folded map. And I'm like, that sounds surreal. And it wasn't that long ago.
I was telling a kid the other day that to meet people, I used to go to payphones, leave a message on people's answering machines. They would call their answering machine to check it to see where I was. So it would take 20 minutes to find out someone was running 40 minutes late.
That's why you needed the Motorola pager.
No, those are cool. What's that I smell? Is it milk?
You can smell milk? What are you, some kind of...
Lactose intolerant Asian person?
Yeah,
wait,
exactly.
hold
What
on,
are you,
wait.
like a cat detective?
But wait, why are you going to Japan? Hold on. Then we'll get into your feline nose here, cat photo guy. Why are you going to Japan?
Going to Japan to hang out with my aunt who wants to move to Japan, so I'm going to help her find an apartment. Then we're going to go to Taiwan to hang out with our other family.
So it's a full family...
It's a full family trip. There, I'm going to...
National Lampoon's Asian Vacation.
That's right.
Oh, the mishaps.
Only the funny stuff. That doesn't involve death. But
How racist would have National Lampoon's Asian Vacation have been in the 80s?
a little acceptably Asian because everything was racist in the 80s, right?
It's amazing how racist a lot of stuff is from back then. Even The Simpsons. I mean, I don't mean even The Simpsons, but The Simpsons, for example.
Yeah.
Going back and looking at their depictions of the Chinese restaurant, it's a bunch of guys with buck teeth who are yeah. And you're just whoa. Jokes about eating weird stuff. It does not age well.
It doesn't age well, and now we have a presidential candidate who's Asian American. I just want to see how the public reacts to that as an Asian man.
Yang Yang Dance.
Yang Gang Dance.
Have you noticed that he's attracted a lot of followers from the alt-right?
Is that right? Is that right?
It's alt-right.
Why is that?
So Yang and the Yang Gang have a large part of his platform is universal basic income, or is it basic universal income? Whatever the order of that phraseology would be.
$1,000 a month.
He's saying $1,000 a month so you can just game all day, game all night. But the chaos, Redditor sort of 4chan guys are fuck Trump, we're in Yang Gang now because he's going to give us cash. So there are all these memes with your frog guy, whatever his name is.
Pepe.
Yeah, Pepe the frog guy, and MAGA hats and crying faces. They're now shifting from Trump to Yang Gang.
Can I throw out a theory about that? I think Yang is kind of one of the first political candidates for president that resides in the weird Twitch 4chan zone because I I mean, his demographic is Asian, and those people, they're getting older, and a lot of them can vote now. And there's entire populations on these platforms that like aren't necessarily politically aligned, and that's also where alt-right people kind of hide out and reside. Because I remember when 2016 happened, like I think Twitch had to kind of suss out all these chat rooms that were run by alt-right people who couldn't get on Facebook, who couldn't get on like what's another Reddit, like didn't really appreciate their forums, so they would all get on gaming websites to like talk. So I think
Those sneaky alt-right bastards.
that's right.
Yeah, but
Just infiltrating the sanctity and the purity of the video game world. Whereas, like, come on, man. That's just for, like, popcorn and masturbation. You can't, like, start putting politics on video game websites, right?
How soon is it going to be until a political candidate like advertises a billboard in Fortnite? It's like you roll through, like you have your gun ready, you're walking through, you're stalking some guy, and there's like a billboard for Yang for president.
Like Cory Booker. Hey, what's up with Cory Booker and Rosario Dawson?
They're dating.
I know, but is that just because he's got a thing for AOC?
also, I just
They look
realized
remarkably
Yang follows me on Twitter.
Similar.
Am I in Yang gang?
Is that a humble brag?
No, I just realized
Oh.
I was looking him up.
Oh.
I'm in Yang gang.
He or his team of butts?
I mean, I think it's got to be him. Just, or it is his gang.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh yeah, the Booker Rosario thing. She's really compromising her coolness, politics, and personal brand here.
She dated Eric Andre before, right? I just read about all this morning. It's pretty interesting. First Lady Dawson.
But she was a big Bernie supporter, and now she's like not shacking up, but canoodling with a very corporate Democrat.
I mean, that photo of Cory Booker that came out with his like vest and his like weird fit,
The Cory Booker fit check.
kind of like puts us in our place a little bit now, right? Be like, you must have a great sense of humor.
Dressed up like a Walmart greeter.
But yeah, that's
But the thing is, and not to spread any rumors about him being gay, but no, I'm saying like who cares? But a lot of people
It's
do.
out there, it's out there.
People say like, oh, she's a beard, and so was like,
which is weird,
what was
Is it a weird beard?
very weird. Beard.
his prior girlfriends, and they've always kind of been like cool girls from New York.
Maybe he's a cool guy from New Jersey.
But maybe so. But I'm just saying that always seems to be the speculation with him. But the irony is like every time he dates someone, you're like, another beard for him. And it's like, yeah, but
Maybe he's just
dating
got mad game,
he's
like-
dating a woman. You're like, classic beard.
I think he has. I'm with Jordan. He has a fantastic sense of humor.
But yeah, like the Beto joined the presidential race. He's
a good-looking fucker, isn't he?
his arrival was greeted with a lot more disdain than I kind of thought was going to happen.
I love the star turn for his dog for the Vanity Fair Annie Leibovitz shoot. The dog stole the show.
The big thing here is there's like a year and a half more of this. I'm already tired of all these guys
kinda
and women. I'm tired of all of them, and we've got 18 more months of this.
Well, I can relate to that because like all we do is talk about like the Sixers for hours twice a week. So I get that people are into it, but like politics makes me sad because it's just so mean. It's like, what are his hands all about? I'm like, I just don't care. But if you said that about an NBA player, I'm like, oh, this is harmless. But like more and more so, they're meeting in the middle, right? That politics kind of like isn't on the day-to-day basis isn't as important as you would think growing up, and then basketball actually ends up being more political than you think.
It's weird when you see all these things combining where it's like you had Obama loved basketball, and now he's still obviously a political figure and representative of a government that many people are wistful for and a period of time in which we weren't frantically checking the headlines every morning to see what atrocity has been committed, etc. And he's at Duke games watching Zion.
I mean, why wouldn't he be? That's where everyone wants to be, is at Duke games watching Zion.
That's presidential privilege right there.
Right? Except he didn't really get to see much. He should have been there last night when he could have got to see the whole enchilada.
So
the
Zion
full
made his
package.
return against the same team that he got injured against, which was Upstate's finest, the Syracuse Orangemen. Or Syracuse Orange, excuse
Shout
me.
out to Lawrence Moten. Syracuse, great. Orangemen, great.
When I first started writing stuff for Grantland, I was writing about the Big East. And I hadn't really been following college ball, so I'm like, all right, I really got to bone up here. And I was writing articles about Syracuse and just kept calling them the Orange Men. And like, people were like, I think it's awesome that he calls them the Orange Men because it's so Big East. I'm like, oh, wait, they're the Orange now.
They dropped the man.
I didn't actually know. And like, it's cool. It's like really throwback. He must love the old school Big East. I'm like, oh, it's an offensive name that I've been
Well, since the
using,
one and
apparently.
done bus factory model of like Duke and Kentucky, not Kentucky, just a one and done in Kentucky, it's like the tension has kind of gone away. Well, the Big East disbanded, but Syracuse hasn't been relevant in a long time. Like since Carmelo Anthony, maybe.
Oh,
They
so
were-
they both lost relevancy at the same clip.
Nah, they were like the number one team in the country there for a little while. Like when
Am
they
I
had,
forgetting?
when they had like Fab Mello and those guys, they had a really good squad.
Rest in peace. He passed away, right?
Yeah, but they had I forget the other guys in the team, but it was like you had I think T.J. Fair and you had
Oh, okay.
Wesley Johnson. Then
That
you had
team was
Flynn.
good.
I mean, there was
Wait,
a few.
did he-
They had good teams
Right,
for a while there.
Okay.
Those guys were not all on the same team, but
And how did that good team fare last night against the mighty Mount
It was competitive for a second in the
For,
third
like-
quarter.
for a second?
I mean, not third quarter, in the second half. In the
but
middle
who are
of
we
the second
kidding?
half.
It's the Zion show. Jordan,
Yes.
give me a Zion scouting report. What did you see last night?
I saw an NBA ready player who will beat the shit out of pretty much anyone in the top 25 in the NBA. I mean, like performance wise. I mean, it's not just athleticism. He's smart, man. The way he like dives passing lanes, all those steals that he gets. I mean, obviously, like being huge and fast helps you get those steals, but his positioning on the offensive glass, he's not a project. You know, he doesn't have a lot of holes in his game that I can see. He was like dropping threes last night.
Only 2 for 9 from the line, which was his only blemish.
Well,
Otherwise,
yeah.
perfect. Perfect.
as far as a prospect goes, it's sort of universally accepted that he is up there with the greatest guys we've had coming out of college over the last, let's say, decade, right? You've got
Disagree. No.
But
He's
I
a
think-
tier below.
Well, hold on. Let's list some of those guys that people would put up there, like Cat, Anthony Davis, Kyrie.
We're not including like Luca or LeBron because they didn't go to.
I mean,
out of
LeBron was
college.
LeBron was like 20 years ago, and he wasn't in college. Yeah, I'm saying the collegiate dudes. Ben Simmons would be in that same conversation, but those are kind of like the peak guys that I'm conjuring like from memory right now. It's guys you knew were going to go number one. You don't put him on that same level.
I don't. I mean, he's awesome. I love him. But those guys are, I think, more complete players, and they're more modern players. The fear I have with Zion, he's a number one. We shouldn't overthink this at all. But it's intriguing if you get into the weeds to think about him contrasting a player like his teammate, R.J. Barrett, who kind of like hypothetically slots in quicker and easier into the modern NBA because he can shoot threes, he can play a different style of defense. He has a different style of offense, even. I even rank Jaren Jackson Jr. above Zion Williams.
Okay, Jordan, can you tell me what you're thinking about the Kuo Big Board preview?
No, Zion's number one, man.
Yeah, but if he's number one, I don't understand these holes. Like he can't shoot threes, but a lot of players can't until they get to the NBA.
That's true, but he can't yet. And a lot of these players can in college more
But
so.
is shooting threes even ethical?
Yeah.
It's unethical. Zion is
what
the
do you
most.
So how do you,
He's
how do
an
you,
ethical
so how do you
player.
feel about Giannis and Ben Simmons?
Sometimes you got to go unethical, Ben. Sometimes you got to win without ethics.
I believe in modern basketball, 3-point shooting is no longer a necessity for certain players.
Oh yeah, like Ben Simmons. No, Zion is going to be a great player, but Ben Simmons is a more complete player than Zion is.
But I think that the same principles for Giannis or Ben Simmons will apply to Zion Williamson in that now that everyone can shoot, and it's not just a trait that wings have, that guards are required to possess. that you can put a shooter at any position pretty easily. If you want a stretch five, you can get one. It's not like there's two. You can just go get one. You want a Mike Muscala, you want a Brook Lopez, you want a Luke the God Cornett. You can find someone to shoot threes from the five.
100%. But
And if you have four shooters on the court, and even three, you can find a place to put a Zion that's not going to cramp your style because he's not going to be playing in. He's not going to fuck up your spacing because people can shoot around him.
I agree totally. But what if there's a prospect who can do more? You know, I mean, what Zion does is amazing and flashy and highlight real stuff. And Jaren Jackson Jr. didn't really have that kind of game. But like his post move, he can create off the dribble, create his own shot in space. I think he's a more skilled player than Zion Williamson, who is so much more fun. You know, it's like a different thing. It's like comparing like an action movie Aquaman to like Roma. You know, it's just like we're dealing with kind of two different kind of compartmental things.
I'm definitely not saying that shooting doesn't matter as a skill. It is valuable. I just mean if you have someone who is an outlier in the kind of things that Zion can do, which are get to the basket at will, who can, I think he can get to the basket, draw fouls, and score on anyone in the NBA pretty much.
I like the way he moves
you're like-
without the ball. He takes great lanes. He knows, like to Jordan's point, he knows where to stand. His instincts are good. Like I always think about Amari Stoudemire because he was like so athletic and he had everything. He just stood in the wrong place. Like he wanted to be so good, but his skills at being in the right place were
His
off.
basketball GPS was broken, babe.
It was. He was with a paper map.
Do you think that if Zion started shooting threes and like really explored the triple frontier of the NBA, so to speak, would you be happy then, Andrew?
Well, another wrinkle to his game puts him into a higher tier, obviously, right? So, like, he can exist. Like, Ben Simmons is a wonderful passer, right?
We're gonna have to start calling it the
triple tier.
arc, the triple frontier. We have no choice at this point.
The triple, right. I mean, all these guys have to show is like one more skill set, and it just makes them so much more enticing as prospects. Like Ben Simmons is like a genius passer who barely played.
I'm overshooting. I think shooting is a vestige of the past. You can find someone to shoot. It's the easiest skill set now to find versus back in the, say, even 5 to 10 years ago. It was a difficult skill set to find.
agreed.
Now you can find them everywhere.
But you're following your take because
swing a dead cat, hit a shooter. You know what I mean?
Fucking everywhere.
But then you clown on Reddit constantly, so they have to do more than just shoot.
For sure. But that's what I mean. Finding a shooter
Because you can
is
find
easy.
a unitasker, but you
Yeah.
can't find like someone who could do more than just shoot. Like the guys who do more than Redick are valued at a price that are hard to acquire. Like you can get Wes Matthews in the buyout market. You can get JJ Redick pretty easily in some other form, but you can't get a complete player at the 3.
Yeah, I mean you need
Easily.
you need specialists all the time. Like maybe you need a recon guy and a sniper and
They all have a
helicopter
flaw.
pilot.
And then you can pull off a heist. So
What we're getting at here.
what we're trying to gently massage into this conversation is perhaps a Ben Affleck project popped up on Netflix within the last day or two.
Yeah, man. What a lovely surprise that was. Like a midweek Christmas present.
It was nice. It was nice. I was like, I'm
Wednesday.
watching
Who
this
drops
shit.
shit on Wednesday?
It's like I will watch this shit now.
Yeah, we're talking, of course, about Triple Frontier, the J.C. Chandor directed hunk fest.
It's a beefcake factory.
Oh my God! Like
Hulk junk all over the place.
One of the
was-
4 brothers representing.
which of the 4 brothers?
You remember the 4 Brothers movie?
Oh yeah. Oh, Garrett Hedlund was in that.
Yeah. Long career.
Long career for a young buck.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Four Brothers.
That was a really fun movie.
It was. But go on, tell us more about Triple Frontier, which I, oddly enough, have not seen yet.
Directed by J.C. Chandor, who's like a very interesting guy. Did a Most Violent Year,
That was
Margin Call, All Is Lost, all like quite serious movies. So I was surprised to see him like
Rudy, motherfucker.
yeah, and all of a sudden he's banging out a beefcake fucking
Extravaganza.
Wait, are we talking about the movie or Cory Booker? What's this conversation about?
You don't know what he's got under that vest.
Chest hair beard tech.
Yeah, like a serious action movie, but it's not that serious. It's a heist movie mixed with I don't know, like what are they called? Cartel fucking blue.
Yeah. No spoilers. How far do we go into spoiling this? If you don't want to listen, if you want to watch it,
People have not had a lot of time.
Yeah, we won't. So
This
no
movie,
spoilers.
so-
But yeah, it's about a group of.
Mercenaries?
No, they're not mercenaries. They're ex-Delta Marines who become mercenaries.
I was waiting for that, and there
the
we go.
Classic route to mercenarydom, Navy SEAls.
And in between, they have other jobs like motivational speaker,
Real estate agent.
Man, Ben Affleck is a real estate agent in his.
Convincing real estate
Oh
agent.
fuck yeah, man! He's like rocking chinos, a polo, those New Balance
You wanna-
990 version 4s. they got the details right. I'll give them that.
You still drinking? Want a beer?
Yeah.
How
Nothing like finding a overdue phone bill on the fridge as you're just trying to have a
From
casual
your
beer with
ex-wife.
your bud.
would you say he was more convincing as a real estate agent than an accountant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Also believable as an
he's
accountant.
not very successful as a real estate agent. He couldn't close the deal. But
He's really more of a mercenary at heart.
yeah, Affleck's good in those like downtrodden roles. I think he just like taps into that post benefit thing where he's like, "Fuck, how did I mess that up?" Like,
Is he married to his nanny? Did that happen, or
I think he just.
is he flying solo now?
I believe so.
Okay, I don't know.
Carried by the dragon wings on his tattooed back.
Fantastic piece.
But yeah, Affleck is convincing, and it's a nice movie about greed and friendship. And it's prime Affleck. He's put on a lot of weight. His like eyes are disappearing into his face, but it's convincing.
Is that weight, or is that like the way your body changes, like your bone structure changes when you get old? Because he was like a spry guy in Geely, and he's like a big, stocky dude. Is that just nachos? Or in Boston, would it be chowder?
Well, where's this movie set? This goes cartel. Is it Mexico or is it Colombia or it's somewhere south of the border? I
Yes.
believe.
Well,
Yes.
this is getting to my gripe about the movie. I enjoyed it.
Finally, a gripe. We've had enough of Jordan's laud. So let's hear the downside.
It was just like very, very watchable, very enjoyable, but a collection of like outdated tropes where like the minorities were just like blah 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 and just getting mowed down, and like they're kind of faceless like victims of this whole thing. And
That's because they got it blown off.
it was very violent, and like I don't care about stuff making sense anymore because I think we're in the era of like here's Venom, here's the Punisher. There's no cops anywhere, but like the plot made so little sense where I was like, okay, I just have to watch this for like the cinematography and the great acting in it, because it really does a disservice to storytelling a little bit. It's just like that doesn't make sense, and that doesn't make sense, not to spoil anything. I do love how it transforms into kind of like, this is my favorite. I think we've talked about it before. My favorite kind of story, like Zodiac, where it's just like a lot of stuff happens and then the characters wander forever. It's like I really enjoy that story, but it was so bad and so fun.
Is that kind of like the Iliad?
Yeah, for sure.
Some wars happen, then you just kind of like poke around the globe, like Kuo off in Asia, and then you just kind of come home,
Wander. Like if I think of the best movies like
clean
that,
out some Aegean stables, return back to the crib.
pretty much, and then you encounter stuff, and it kind of is about like Homer. Like they encounter certain things, and there's I don't want to spoil it, but there's like there's a Riverman, which was kind of like a wink to the Homer's Odyssey, you know.
No, I didn't even know that.
It's very what Oscar Isaac. He's got a trunk on him. That guy. When he's climbing up that hill. He's full. Like Danny Ainge must have just been like losing his fucking mind.
Oh,
when
he's
he
got
saw
that thunder in the back.
Oh yeah, it was like Kyle Lowry
He's thick?
up there. Oscar
I
Isaac,
didn't notice.
short legs, and thick. Also,
He's got that-
shout out to Short Legs, Captain Marvel.
You said it was distracting.
It was distracting. Like, she is great. The movie sucks for about an hour, and then it isn't as bad for the next hour. But that's because she starts fucking flying. The first half of the movie, she is running after everyone, and she has a very strange, short-legged running style.
Gate.
A very strange gait. She kind of like runs like a 5-year-old, sort of like across the body, and she's just like scampering around. It looks very weird. And if you've got a convincing superhero and she like runs weird, that seems to be a problem. Wouldn't you ask her to run in the audition, even if she's got a Best Actress Oscar under her belt? But look, you can act your ass off, but how's your strut?
I'm gonna alley-oop you. Who is the best runner in cinema?
We all know who that is. That's our boy, the Cruiser, TC, Tom Cruise.
No one runs like Tom Cruise.
No one close.
Best runner. Best runner.
I would say a close second is Dustin Hoffman.
Harrison Ford in Raiders.
Is
Harrison
Dustin
Ford.
Hoffman? Is this just from the movie about the jewel thieves or whatever? Marathon Man.
Marathon Man. Well, that's great because it does that run around the park.
That was my reference.
Also, like The Graduate.
What makes a good runner?
Hey, man, you tell me. That's like it's a mystery for the ages.
I think it has to be strideful, but it has to be a little frantic. Well, Cruz is chesty, so he kind of like runs with his chest out, which is like super fun.
I wish everyone could have just seen Kuo running
I did
with
it.
his chest out.
I did
he
it.
put
I know
his
it's
chest
radio,
out.
but I'm doing it.
Well, Cruz has that sense of urgency, and as you said, the compactness. But it also looks like he can run forever. That's the great thing. When Cruz is off and dashing, it's just like a perpetual motion
Goes
machine.
fast, man.
Yeah, he's fast,
fast.
but it's also like he doesn't slow his gait. He doesn't start slumping. It's just Cruz is flying for as long as he needs to. I feel like that's the key to the Cruz is that like he can run as long as he needs to.
Right.
He's good.
Right. Like Arnold in The Running Man, not such a great runner. He's kind of stocky, walks around, like he lumbers a little bit. I mean, can you blame him? He's like yoked
Gigantic.
up. Yeah. Speaking of gigantic
And lumbering.
and lumbering, what's Boogie Cousins' vertical, do you think, right now?
His vertical?
Yeah.
About 8 inches.
Yeah. He still destroyed the other night.
Yeah, Boogie has been an interesting player in his comeback here for the Golden State Warriors. He was all universe. He was on the Sacramento Kings.
universe.
I just mean he was. I don't know if he
Was he Thanos? Oh, you wouldn't know because you don't watch children's monster
I don't
movies.
watch children's
Purple,
monster movies.
Kings, high five, Jordan. That was awesome.
I don't know what just happened.
Yeah.
But Boogie missed most of last season with an Achilles injury, and we've been very concerned about the ramifications for that. The Achilles injury it's not a death blow for the modern athlete anymore, but it is a grievous injury. Most players are never the same. And I don't know that Boogie is the same player, but in the Rockets game, in the Rockets Warriors play the other night, and Boogie put together a Boogie-esque throwback line of, I think, something along the lines of 28, 29, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, just a
7 turnovers, a bunch of griping.
it was a
Very, very typical Boogie.
it was vintage Boogie. How much of a meaningful player is he on this Warriors team? Because you were very skeptical that he would have a significant role, but we just saw him put up those kind of numbers in what was a big game.
Yeah, like a week and a half. His sample size is so small. So like a week and a half ago, when you looked on his on-off numbers, like there was kind of a reason to think that they may have slipped a little when he's on the court defensively. But like a big game like that, one game changes a whole lot with his small his short season. He looked good. He looked skilled. In the playoffs, I think it really helps him because hypothetically the game slows down. I no longer think of him with the injury as like a max player, a top tier player. I think he will be a crucial piece to a team like Golden State, but like he had a good game and he has a touch still and he has a presence, but I am a little still skeptical. I think he covers up situations where when Durant isn't around.
Have him and Durant shared the floor together much? Not really, right?
They're both in the starting lineup together.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you, Jordan, as someone who is a longtime admirer of Boogie, does the way that he plays, sharing the ball, being an exceptional passer for his size, despite having like a high usage himself, being sort of more of a team type of guy than Durant, I don't think the Warriors are better without Durant, but did they seem more like the Warriors that we kind of grew to love with Boogie when you saw them against Rockets with Durant sidelined?
Yeah, well, obviously because you have Clay and Curry and even Iguodala getting more touches. I mean, it's always going to look like the Durantless Warriors if he's not there.
It tends to.
Yeah, like... But yeah, it looked more like they looked in those seasons with Bogut before he went down in that tragic injury and allowed the Cleveland Cavaliers to win the title. It was not. I maintain it was Bogut and not the absence of Draymond that lost that series.
Huge.
I think his ability, like that, for them to go inside outside. Durant can post people up, but he doesn't really like to. Boogie can pretty much handle anyone down low one-on-one, even with his limited movement and his like lack of vertical and lateral movement. He's too good in the post for people to handle. If they send anyone, he is, one of the best passing centers of the last 10 years, and he'll just find people. He's got 4 other dudes that'll score for him, and then they can also just go straight back down to him. He can shoot. He's a great trailing 3-point shooter.
The numbers
use him in the
back
break.
up, the numbers back up what you're saying in terms of the style of play, because with Durant they have a lot more isolation. He likes to catch the ball and jab step,
Jab step,
shoot.
jab step. Wait, that sounds like those dudes from, is it the Muppets? Jab step.
The aliens.
Jab step, jab step, jab step, jab step, jab step, jab step,
Carmelo.
jab step, jab step. Yeah, jab step.
And I do think that jab step does have a domino effect on the rest of the team. That when Durant does that, then like Clay or Curry, when they get the ball, it's their time to go. There's less of the whole sort of like, you're going to get the ball back when the Warriors are humming in the way that they did the first couple of years pre-Durant, where they would just pass the ball around and eventually end up after 7 passes with a wide open Curry 3, and you'd be like, holy shit, you can't guard that. They don't do that as much with Durant because he's a great scorer and he doesn't really need to do that sort of stuff. So I think with Boogie, you saw some unselfishness that was I guess spread across the team. But I don't know what happens with Boogie after this year. Is he going to look good enough to say, as you said, sign a big deal? Is he a future Knick?
He's definitely a future Knick.
Well, before that, I thought it was. I kind of find a small bit of disappointment because when the Warriors signed Durant, it felt like they flinched. They no longer were like sticking to this modern like D'Antoni offense, and we always talk about that quote. We're 5 years ahead of everybody, and then signing Boogie because he was available for an affordable price was another flinch. And when we saw them feature him the other night, I'm like, this looks like basketball I recognize now. It's no longer like the Splash Brothers ball movement thing with Iguodala handling. Like, it's no longer this beautiful thing. This looks more like 90s aughts basketball to me. And I think there's kind of a melancholy with the Warriors and kind of makes them look beatable to me a little bit because I recognize them feeding a big man down low who can pass and who's great, but I'm like, oh, we've seen this before and this is beatable.
I'm a bit conflicted about Boogie because I really do like him as a player. He seems like an incredibly excellent teammate, and I like everything about him, but it is also annoying to see him coming back in a way that you'd be really excited if this was on a different team and it happening for the Warriors. You're like, all right,
it
Warriors.
Makes them gross.
Like the Warriors, like even if they resemble the team before the unselfishness, I know what you're saying. It's also like, you have Boogie Cousins now and he's putting up a big game. It's like, and then Durant comes back. It's like, fuck off, Warriors. It'd be really cool if, say, the Clippers had Boogie, and you're like, wait a minute, does this make them a formidable team in the playoffs, or whoever, even if it was on the Lakers? But the Warriors, like, oh, you guys have Boogie now and he's good.
It's like, we're smarter. I'm like, no, you now you just created an environment where good players want to play for you. That's not necessarily smart. You're just good.
Right, you just have all the good guys.
Yeah.
It's like, which has always been our complaint since
Yeah.
the Durant thing. And it's not that the organization did anything wrong. It's just not as fun.
And I'll take Boogie on the Knicks. Like, that's fun. I love that guy. Like you said, he's compromised now. Like, I think one of his legs is shorter than the other. I think that's a common thing with Achilles recovery. But
I don't see how that could be a problem in basketball.
I mean, he's going to have to overcome more than just getting older, right? But I'll take him on the Knicks for 3 or 4 years with a player option. Like, he's awesome. Boogie Cousins and MSG, yeah, I'm in.
And the other thing is that he's a vulnerability defensively, but the league is changing so much and so rapidly.
And it's based off matchup.
Right. Well, teams like are putting guys like Vukovic out there, who's always been a liability, but is kind of okay on offense. And Brook Lopez was a bad defensive player, but is kind of working on Milwaukee. Like,
You trust the Knicks guys, like the upper management, to recognize this nuance, though? You know, like,
look, I trust Dolan's vision, man.
I mean, I don't want to think this way, but the more we see this game play out, like, it's a reflection on the owner, right? Like, teams are constantly a reflection on how the owner thinks and who he hires and how he sees success and failure.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine Dolan looking at Boogie on paper and be like, is that the troublemaker from the Kings back in the day, right?
Yeah. Or just like, feed him the rock, baby, post up.
Yeah, I don't like that snarl that he has every time he dunks it. I think he might be he must be some problems. Does he drink? Does he believe in God?
Well, we sort of separate. Yeah, definitely believes in God. We separate sort of decisions that are made from the owners if they're not known as tamperers. And it's kind of like with Dolan, when we knew he was tampering, it was easy to revile him, and people still hate him for that. But it's like
By tampering, you mean with his own team.
right.
Yeah.
I don't mean like the
Tinkering.
Magic Johnson
Tinkering.
tampering. Yeah, meddling.
Meddling.
More of a meddling type of situation,
Taking invested interest in his investments.
which I would do constantly if I owned an NBA team. I'm like, trade that guy. How do we get this guy on the team? Like, yeah, but sir, you don't know anything. I'm like, I know I own the team.
Isaiah, what do you know about this DeMarcus fella?
He reminds me of me.
But even with like Jeannie Buss, right? We're not blaming her for the decisions that were made last offseason that brought in Lance Stevenson, Beasley, Rondo. But like, she's the one who put Magic and Pelinka in charge. Like, that's on her. And there was an article a few weeks ago about the Phoenix Suns that talked about how the job of a GM is partially to manage the opinions and expectations of the owner. And in some ways, for the Knicks, Steve Mills, Allen Houston, Perry, they've kind of done that. The problem is that their own opinions and decisions may not be as good, but they actually have done a good job of managing Dolan, seemingly.
Well, I think that Dolan, with the Phil Jackson hiring, was kind of forced to get used to the idea of taking a back seat, and you know, he didn't have his like boy Isaiah in power, and he kind of had to respect the guru or whatever. And I think maybe it was a knock-on effect of that. He was like, oh, actually, like, I kind of enjoy not having to worry about this shit all the time. And that's how, I think they kind of inherited his mellowness, or his recent mellowness, from the Phil Jackson era.
Well, you saw in a recent interview a couple days ago, Dolan blamed Bill Simmons for trying to sabotage and, forget the word, he said destabilize the Knicks because there were these stars that were ready to go there this upcoming summer. Should Dolan be doing press?
Right.
That's kind of,
Yeah.
why are you doing interviews?
You're right. And like, Jordan's right. Like, so with Phil Jackson hiring, Dolan's is like, I fucking did it. I got the guy. And basically everybody around him was probably like, just dribble out the clock. This is not going to work out. When this doesn't work out, he's going to realize that we need to take over. And he,
Steve Mills' season returns.
you know, and then when the Phil Jackson thing didn't work out predictably, they were like, okay, the game's over. But now it seems like, oh, the refs put 3 seconds back on the clock. It's like, no, Dolan gets another possession. Like, now he's back in the media, like, talking more. Like,
That's the thing. The altercation with the fan, he's kind of like, oh, actually, yeah. People remember who I am. And, like, this is who I am. Like, it kind of seemed to spur an uptick in activity for old Jimbo.
But what do we know about these owners anyway? Half the time we see them in like these odd situations where they just kind of are on camera, kind of at the game, and the owner's here and you see them in their box, or every now and then they'll do like a quick little interview. You don't really get to know these guys. They're billionaires, captains of industry, you know, scions of Cablevision, etc. And like we actually know more about Dolan than most of these guys.
and bust. And like, you know, like back in the day with Iverson, like Pat Croce represented the owner group, but he wasn't
the owner.
right. Jay-Z and the Nets, like he barely had any stake in it.
Prokhorov, we kind of got to know.
Yes,
Oh
yeah, he's
man,
interesting.
like him just sitting there in like the full matching Adidas sweatsuit, like you just could imagine him with an AK-47 leaned against the doorway.
He was doing a lot of Putin shit. It'd be like, here I am doing push-ups and
So
doing
awesome.
judo. I mean, they were literally the same kind of Soviet athletic endeavors. It was like judo, a big part of the Soviet. What's the word we use for the
Block.
No, you know the wealthy Russians. We always use the same
Oligarchs?
word. Oligarchs, yes, the oligarchs. You can't even be an oligarch if you're not Russian.
I want to get like a small like article about the oral history of branding the Brooklyn Nets because, you know, through the Swamp Dragons thing being like, oh no, we're about Brooklyn and Jay-Z and rap. And then all of a sudden they had like all the Bogdanoviches and all the Kirilenkos because like their owner was like Eastern European or Russian, you know?
Yeah, and then they filled the arena with drywall barons from like Brighton Beach.
Halfway crooks.
Halfway crooks.
Did you guys get a look at the Utah Jazz owner the other day? Which I was not expecting to be a tiny little old lady. Looked like she just came straight from Bridge.
All right, so back up.
Cardigan and shit. Like, I was like, what?
Why was she on the court? How come we saw her?
Oh, it was because of the Westbrook incident with the confirmed racist, Shane Creel or whatever the fuck his name is.
Don't say his name.
Don't say his name. I'm just reminding everyone. He got torched. He lost his job.
Oh, did he?
Oh,
I didn't.
Well,
He worked at a car dealership. That was called Brent Brown Car
Oh,
Dealership.
okay. That was a whole fire, Brent Brown.
Fire Brent Brown!
Yeah, and like, I read some of the Yelp reviews. I gotta say, it was brutal. It was just page after page of like, fuck this dude, racist piece of shit. Like, I don't even know if that car
Hi,
dealership
it's
is
me,
around anymore.
Mike from OKC, and I've got some strong opinions about this Salt Lake City Toyota dealership.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, every white person in Utah is like, I have a black friend. I'm not like that.
Also,
His name's Officer Mitchell.
I was like, you throw a saltine into the crowd at a Utah Jazz game, you're gonna hit a racist because they voted really, really, really heavily for Trump, and like, there's a lot of overlap.
And I don't think prejudice is always the same as racism, but this guy seemed like he was just the worst. But
Utah also has a reputation going back when Rodman was playing there.
Yeah.
Their fans are not run-of-the-mill hecklers.
Well, I think that's the thing. As a result of the Westbrook incident, there was like a bit of a spotlight. Shined Wordsmith
Shone.
on Utah as a player unfriendly arena atmosphere, and so the owner, this tiny little old lady, came out and had like a pretty like sincere and remarkable speech, whether she wrote it herself, to the Utah crowd about sort of like behaving themselves and having respect and like respecting the game and respecting opponents. And it was like really cool, but also like ultimate damage control, because I think it was like, oh shit, they found out. They found out. After all this time, like somebody aired them out as being fucked up polygamous racists.
you liked her speech?
Yeah, I thought it was sincere in the sense that she didn't want her family's business to be shit on anymore. I don't know.
Right? Was it a business decision or was it?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think she actually seemed embarrassed almost that like her family business and something that she'd been a part of for like almost 40 years was kind of being viewed in this negative way. So I think it was both a business decision and also a plea to Utah fans, like, hey, like this is not who I want us to be. And it's pretty. I've never seen an owner come out and make a public announcement or statement during a game, like not during a game, like right before a game. And it was
Ronadive did that last year.
It was like 4 minutes long.
Yeah.
Well, what did Ronadive say?
Well, remember there was I believe there was a riot outside of the Kings Arena. And
The start of the game was delayed because people were protesting the shooting of a young black guy by the Sacramento police.
And I believe the next game, he gave a speech with his team and being like, we have to like talk to each other, we have to listen to everybody speak, and we're about dialogue and not about like acting on our emotions.
But also with Utah, you have the typical dynamic that we talk about a lot, where you have young black guys playing and audiences that are, in many cases, largely white and have a lot of money. And there's this odd dynamic between. I mean, we spoke about this with the Westbrook incident last week. Like, what's fair? What are you allowed to say to players? What aren't you allowed to say? But that is in Utah even more accentuated because it's a state that's 1% black. So not only do you have that existing basketball dynamic, you also have it in an environment that does not have the same demographics as New York City or Atlanta or Houston or Philly. It's unique amongst NBA cities in that regard.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that when that debate came out, like, what are we allowed to do? People immediately started talking about money. So it's just like, well, I pay to sit there, and like he makes so much money, that's why he makes money, so he can deal with ire from the fans who pay to be there. And it's funny how we talk about these things all the time in that like we judge people who get big contracts and we judge coaches who are getting paid too much, who aren't winning. But we never talk about that old lady who's making all the money, or most of like half of the money, and everyone else splits the rest. And it's like a selective attention to things that we actually can like pick out and make sense of. Like the entire Utah fan base is not that one guy. The health of the Utah franchise is not Rudy Gobert. It's not Donovan Mitchell, who's a cop. It's the sum of what this person at the top, like a Dolan, does. And in New York, we crush Dolan, and it's funny, but we don't really go after like the owner of the Jazz like we go after Donovan Mitchell.
Also, I was going to say, how many owners could you recognize? I mean, I'm just thinking like Dolan, Prokhorov, whatever his involvement is.
He's gone, man. Alibaba owns it.
That's what I mean. It's like I'm thinking of like, Steve Ballmer, Josh Harris. I mean, there's a few different.
There was
guys.
Steve Allen,
Cuban. Like there are not a lot of owners that you could even mention by name, because in part some of these are
Dan
investment
Gilbert.
groups with 9 members, etc.
right? Even
Jesse
those
Itzler.
people.
Right. That's like I don't know who the actual Hawks owner is, but
Right. When the championship happens,
let's go New York.
every year when the championship is decided, they wheel out the trophy, and some random white guy holds it up first, and you're like, oh, he's the owner. We've never even seen him. It's like, it's really odd. Like, give it to Durant first, man.
Right, Joe Lacob or Lacob.
Lacob, yeah. And
Yeah,
these
it's
guys
like
aren't-
when Best Picture at the
Right,
Oscars
yes,
comes
yeah,
out, and
right.
you're like, oh, I don't know who these 4 fucking producers are.
it's like, why isn't Mahershala holding the Oscar?
No, it's just like a random older white guy in a suit who's like, thank you to my part. Like, just starts naming off people you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you just put money in.
Right.
Got it.
David and Cassie for being my children for the last 45 years.
Like, what's going to
Oh
happen?
my God, I can't believe it's really happening. Me, a Hollywood investor, winning an Oscar.
Can you
At least they
imagine?
don't do that. The hyperventilation cadence.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine in 3 years when the Nets win the championship with AD and KD, and they hand it to like a board member from Alibaba? It's gonna be so odd, right?
Is that Alliance?
Fully, it's Asian Alliance. I love it. I'll be hanging out with them in 2 days.
What about in 3 years when Redaelli is holding up that goddamn trophy?
Well, before we go to the purple, I think like the ownership thing is. It made me think of the whole college scandal. Have you guys been listening to this college like bribery scandal stuff, like Lori Loughlin?
Yes.
Just describe it to you quickly, Jordo. A bunch of people paid for their kids to get into a bunch of elite schools like USC.
Isn't that how college works?
Exactly. So
Wow.
they pay. Some organization offered a service where like people would pay like a sum of money to be on like the rowing team or the yacht team or whatever you call it, and
So they bought scholarships, not tuition. Is that?
they bought entrance.
So it was basically an intermediary who they would pay, who would then, say, bribe or work with schools to give fake scholarships via their coaches, or tutors who would cheat on the tests. And
Alter
it was
results.
just scamming, rich people scamming their way into schools. My takeaway was like, I thought that's what they were doing all along.
Yeah.
Always.
Like, I thought you guys were
Yeah.
always buying your way into schools. How did you manage to turn it into a
Like,
crime?
has no one seen the skulls?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why it made me think of the whole ownership labor thing in the NBA is because the faces of this scandal are Lori Loughlin, Aunt Becky from Full House, and Felicity Huffman, who was one of the Desperate Housewives, I believe. And everyone talks about them being
Apparently,
like,
she was very desperate.
Yeah.
Desperate enough to commit crimes.
and so like
She'll spend tonight in a county jail.
And it's like this delicious story for people who already had that built-in narrative in their head being like the privileged celebrity. Hollywood is the problem. Like it's them. They weren't even the offenders. They were Brett Brown. Like there were other nameless CEOs of corporations that paid more money for their kids to get in. And like we just let them go by. But Lori Loughlin, is she going to jail or not? I'm like, yeah, it's not really Ben Simmons' fault, man. You know, it's just like it's not LeBron's fault. It's Jeannie Buss. Like we apply blame to the wrong place because it's a convenient story. Like this one fan in Utah, we apply blame to him, but like
Wait, is she going to be in a new show called Big House?
she should make money off of this, right?
Like, for sure.
But like her daughter has been like released from her Sephora contract. Like it's affecting them. Like
Good.
yeah, exactly. Like
Fuck all them. Like, honestly, though.
But-
I'm not even one of those people who's offended by this and like, oh, I can't believe these institutions of higher education are compromised. Like, no shit.
Yeah.
Also, why are there scholarships for all these sports like rowing or, I don't know, archery? Are those just ways
Scam.
that
It's a scam.
that you shepherd rich white kids into the school who can't qualify academically anyway?
no, the rowing team is all black. What are you talking? They're all inner city.
You know what I mean? It's like it's not like these scams are happening on the football team or the basketball team. Where
Well,
there's-
they are.
I mean,
they are.
Ben, you're making
What, they
fun
do
of
volleyball?
you're making fun of archery, but like what?
I didn't know you were gonna go there, but I'm with you.
No, but like, how else do you expect that particular sport to nourish talent in archery? There's a thing called the Olympic Games. Archery is part of it. It's all leading up to that. It's a breeding ground for the Olympic Games.
Yo, breakdancing is gonna be an Olympic event, maybe.
Yeah,
That's funny.
that's so dumb.
What kind of music
Oh,
would
you like
play?
archery but not breakdancing?
No, it's like-
you are kicked out of the temple of hip hop. You're done. You're done here. No more street entrepreneurship. No more beatboxing.
All right.
You no longer.
You want to do graffiti on the way
Yeah,
out?
right.
Tough luck.
The wouldn't like parkour or something make it before breakdancing if you want to be real French about it? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
French love breakdancing.
that's what I mean. And parkour.
So, but
And one is much more skilled and athletic than the
I don't know. Are you sure?
other.
Breakdancing is
Wow.
hard. man.
Karis one is rolling over in his lyric encrusted grave.
Wait, he dead?
No.
No, I was gonna say.
Like, you just murdered him, though.
He's-
you murdered the entire
Karis
rap
one would be
community.
rolling over in his bed right now.
Had he died,
He'd be rolling over on his pleather couch.
What if you guys were an Olympic medal hopeful in the upcoming Olympics for breakdancing, what songs would you choose? Would you go like 90s or would you go like
No, you
modern?
need the high tempo. You need that like the quasi disco-y.
So like the crack rap era.
I mean, I'm saying whatever the Showtime kids are dancing to, that's like the tempo you need. It's almost house music.
Like a
Or is it
160.
or is it going to be like figure skating where you kind of like pick a song that's an outlier, like incongruent to the genre, like you end up breaking a Cotton Eye Joe or some shit, or like Aqua.
just,
wow.
like just or just strings. Like you go really artsy.
Well, you could do a medley. I think I'd start with
Megamix?
the Puff Daddy song from Godzilla that sampled Led Zeppelin. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, I'm into it. Sold.
That's very dramatic. Gold medal.
Yeah.
That feels more like a bronze, but I get where you're going.
All right.
I wonder if the legends who are the judges for it? Is that going to be Crazy Legs and like Bobito? Do you have to go get like the
Scratch pickle. I don't know.
Exactly. Do you have to get the guys who used to break dance on the floor at APT to be your actual judges?
Or do
Rest
you,
in peace, Spam.
oh,
Used to bartend at APT back when Crazy Legs would be dancing around and creating a ruckus, and you'd have to move.
Well, there'd have to be world judges as well. So, like, who's like the breakdancing don of China?
oh, easy, man.
The thing is,
What do you?
there's
do you
definitely
mean
like
easy?
world breakdancing competitions
Yang
already,
Gang.
and they're just gonna like usher it into the Olympics. Like those definitely exist, and they're in Europe, and like Red Bull sponsor them.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that whole scene. Oh, that's such a weird scene, man.
Weird scene, man.
Woo.
It's a real
So
trip.
That
look-
B-boy scene.
Exactly.
Woo.
So, breakdancing as a sport is being supported by corporations such as Red Bull. Where is archery getting their support from? Ivy League schools and fake scholarships.
Yeah,
So whose side
It's
do
like,
you
it's
want?
like
on this?
orienteering. I'm on the side of the college.
that's fair. Taking the side of management. That's okay.
Yeah, I think I'm more on the kids getting their Red Bull deal. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Red Bull.
Surprise, Ben likes old school hip hop.
Wish they really got rid of the old like laughing on beat. That was a good thing. But the Kumodi. I'll do it.
My point. Here we go.
Actually, I never really liked that stuff at all.
Busta Rhymes was good. Leaders of a New School. That was fun. That was a long time ago. What was that, 30 years ago?
LONS.
Yeah.
Lons. Anyway, you're out of the school of hip hop, the temple of hip hop. I'm sorry.
Bummer.
Is the CTE and the NBA changing its eligibility rules gonna kind of like end this scandal with admissions, which we thought was going on anyway? Is it gonna change the landscape of this whole like farm system for like leagues like the NBA?
I think the writing in large, wild style is already on the wall.
Fat caps, man.
I don't think the NBA can rely on having NCAA as a farm system for that much longer. And when I say rely on, it means sort of be complicit with. The NBA is so much bigger than college basketball and doesn't need them even necessarily as a place for guys to prove that they're NBA caliber players. I think that fear of unproven high school guys has subsided a bit. And that's ultimately the reason I believe the NBA reversed course on allowing high schoolers in, was they didn't want Corleone Browns. They didn't want teams to waste picks on guys who were unproven high schoolers. And I don't think they fear it as much anymore. That's just my perception, though.
And the G League, there's money. Like, it's called the Gatorade League now. Like, they know Silver knows there's an opportunity. Like, I think we'd watch a G League game if, like, a baller from high school was playing in August, you know? Like, that's kind of fun. Yeah, I agree. Like, should March Madness games all be free? Should you just, like, sign up and you get a ticket? Like, why do you have to pay to see a college game?
Because Madison Square Garden is really expensive to rent. like really expensive.
Well, you just pay
Also,
through like
how-
money, like
air
TV
conditioning
money.
Madison Square Garden must be crazy.
Insane. Well, we saw Panda Bear together in like this big loft space, and it was in the winter, like
Yeah.
a month ago, and all I was thinking was like their Con Ed bills must be crazy, because the ceilings were like 100 feet,
Yeah.
and all the heat goes right up, and I was kind of like toasty in there, and I'm like, damn, this is luxurious, man. Listening to these big, soft,
This
toasty,
big luxury art box.
yeah. But like March Madness makes the most money of any sporting event because there's a lot of games, there's a ton of TV rights, there's a ton of advertising. Why do the tickets cost money if you're not paying the players?
I think that really speaks to the entire problem of college sports.
Yeah, totally right.
Dude, like, it's because it's a trickle down effect. All the money made from
Oh, listen
those.
to Mr. Trickle Down here. Do you believe in the trickle
Yeah,
down?
I mean, how else is the archery team gonna like get their equipment?
Look, Rick Pitino needs his money. Coach K, despite maybe being a terrible coach, has anyone ever really talked about Coach K might be really bad at coaching?
he's been getting heat this year a
He
little bit.
should be. Like,
Yeah.
you get everybody, and
You're not
like,
that
You're
good.
not that great. I'm not saying that he's actually a bad coach because college basketball is sort of a farce. It's just recruiting.
I think they're missing their classic, like, white Bobby Hurley, Wojciechowski kind of guard. I think it's like the soul of the one and done bus factory. The scrappy, like, Ron Baker guy.
I mean, that's the sort of irony of Duke was that their claim to fame was always that we're student athletes, that our guys stay 4 years. And I believe Elton Brand was the first guy to not stay 4 years who played for the team. And they're just no different from anybody.
Yeah.
And they actually get more top players, and it's still like, Duke. And it's like,
Oh, Calipari's so pissed, right?
it's like Duke still gets to be called like an institution of knowledge and has this,
not anymore. Not on our watch.
not on my watch, the cachet of intellectualism and purity. Like, fuck out of here. You're just like everybody else, except you're worse.
Oh,
And
I
that's,
mean-
that's why the parents are to blame. You can't send your kid to Duke.
and yeah, right.
Unless
Unethical.
you go to a middleman and give them a bunch of money.
That's fair.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, we blame Lori Loughlin, and we should be blaming like Klay Thompson's dad or like Del Curry. It's like they game the system to get their kids on the court, where there are more deserving kids that deserve to be on the Warriors. Like, where's Tony Roten? Tell me that.
Seriously, that's messed up.
Yeah.
Like,
That's Tony Roten's
Curry
spot.
shouldn't even be in the NBA, but his dad
Nepotism.
got him in.
Yeah. Like, what is legacy? Like, get him out of there. Tony Roten is a smarter, more ethical player.
Make Steph Curry and Klay Thompson earn their way to the NBA.
That's right.
Bullshit.
Yeah. What if he was just Tim Hardaway regular?
That guy would never make the NBA. Not Tim Hardaway. Got to be Tim Hardaway Jr. We had mentioned earlier, alluded to your boy Redaelli and the Sacramento Kings. Let's just pour out a little purple juice, a little purple drink, if you will, for the Kings. They had an entertaining run, and they are now a game under 500, and their hopes of the playoffs have been dashed. But all in all, kind of a fun year for the Kings.
Yes. Unexpectedly came out of the gate pretty hot and regressed to the mean, I believe they say. But showed flashes of excitement and future brilliance, perhaps, from a couple players. I really liked Willie Cauley-Stein kind of coming into his own. I thought he was like a bit of a lost cause.
I still think he's a lost cause, and I think that's why they slid. But I like him so
Ooh, you gonna
much.
put that all on Willie?
Well-
You gonna put the whole thing on Willie, Quo?
Trilly.
Trilly Willie?
I think Bagley, also from the one and done bus factory, was showing like real signs of being the player they hoped he would be, and he got hurt, and then they kind of slid after that.
They did regress to the mean, as you said. They were not a particularly good team. You look at their numbers, they were 19th in offense, 18th in defense. Expected record is less than their current record. But they were like, no, but
I disagree,
I'm saying-
though,
But
but-
you were right. I'm saying you guys were right. They were not a very good team, and they overplayed
Yeah.
their actual ability a little bit. But I think the guy to look at is De'Aaron Fox. he went from someone who was a very bad player last year. If you looked at like metrics, one of the worst players in the NBA.
Colin Sexton-y.
Yeah, and he turned into a fantastic player this year. He was great. I watched him when they played in the Garden, and he was clearly the best player on the floor for either team. Like, that's not hard when you're playing against the Knicks, but he was fantastic.
Slow your roll, man.
I mean,
Knicks
I know
are doing a thing.
Look, Frank Cornet's great, but Fox.
He's mentioned Cornet a few times. Like,
Love
He's
Cornet,
awesome.
love
He's
Cornet.
awesome. He's pretty
I
awesome.
just like also like saying Cornet.
The Green Cornet.
did you like meet him in a club or something? Is that why you keep shouting him out?
The club in
I
his
wish.
3-point bombing efficiency dreams.
Did you meet him the Triple Frontier?
He's always around the triple frontier. But anyway, Fox, really special player to watch, and I was happily surprised to see that like they have a star. He can get to the rim at will. He finishes incredibly well. He's
Is he
awesome,
as good
man.
as C.J. McCollum?
Yeah, he's better.
Kind of reminds. Well,
Definitive.
but before we get too far, like the regression to the mean idea has been like not really talked about. It's like kind of more of a joke, right? But like their mean is maybe even lower than this. Like they've done well. I think they've played beyond their expectations, whatever that middle is, and like they're gonna end up on top of it. They're not what we thought. Like they are. I thought that draft pick going to the Celtics was going to be nice, and that's not going to be good anymore because they did a good job this year, man. It was a cool team.
Philly dodged a bullet on that one. If they had, I mean, look, Sacramento was going to be in the lottery. That they could actually move up and end up
Right, it's a lottery,
giving the Celtics like the second or third pick in the draft. It could still happen.
Not at their spot. They're out of the top 4, right?
Well, they still have a small, slim percentage, right?
No, they're eliminated from the top slots at that low. Like the draft odds looks like a leaning letter A. Like you don't really have a shot at that. I think.
It's tiny. It's like 2.5% where they currently are. But Boston's more likely to get, say, the 14th pick than they are to get a high one. And Philly did dodge a bullet because if they were surrendering like the third pick after trading Fultz and that being Tatum, it would have been like a really gnarly vibe. But as it is, it's like, all right, what's done is done.
Yeah.
There's not like more
Yeah.
as a
And
thumb in the eye.
And I really liked what, I mean, it's funny to see what a small move like Tyler Johnson did to a team like Phoenix, who have like so much raw talent just from the draft, and we kind of saw that raw talent kind of mature in Sacramento in ways where like I think Bogdan is a star, kind of like a secret star. He is so good, like he's like a much lesser version of this, like a superstar prototype from Europe. Like he's a passer, he can shoot, he sees the court well, he's super active.
Is he a Jingles-esque?
No,
Star?
no.
Like Jokic light, kind of.
I feel like when you look at Jingles,
Yeah.
you realize like he's good at certain things. When you look at Bogdan or whichever one it is on the Kings, he has like, oh, he's a baller. He's got that, like that little like bounce the way he moves. Ingles, you're like, that was a great pass. Oh, that's a good shot. Like Ingles sneaks up on you. Like there are guys who you just watch them play and you're like, oh, he can ball. Like D'Angelo Russell is one of those guys. You just watch him play once, like, oh, this guy's just good at basketball.
Yeah,
You would watch one game and then you'd pick him first if it was pickup ball. You're like, oh, that guy's gnarly.
Yeah.
Like he can get where he wants. He can shake people off the dribble. He can do these kind. And that's like someone like Melo was always fantastic. Just eye test baller.
Yeah. And Bogdan has that.
Bogdan has that, I think.
And it's mostly like dribble bias. Like he's got a handle and
Definitely dribble bias.
Yeah.
Maybe even some crouch bias.
but he's great. And like I think Willie will probably leave in free agency. I wouldn't really pay him a ton of money. Scal has been a disappointment, but they've identified enough good players moving forward that makes him an interesting free agent destination for like a second tier player.
But you have Healed.
Great.
You have
Bogdan.
Fox, and you have Bogdan. You've got three good guards, and that's a nice sort of formative place to build from, and especially in the modern NBA.
Yeah.
Three guys who can play together, who can shoot, they can handle the ball, and then you can say, all right, we need Nerlens Noel, for example, to be
Amazing,
He would be a
amazing.
great pickup for
Amazing,
them.
yeah.
He's kind of like Willie Cauley-Stein, except good.
Yeah.
And all of a
Boogie
sudden-
back to Sacramento? Anyone?
but see, like they've moved on. They're no longer
Yeah,
in the
the
Boogie
timeline
game.
is-
I know.
They're,
I
no, I'm
know.
saying they're in the weirdo game now. They're in like the
Are they in the end game now?
They're in the emulate the Warriors with like
Still doesn't know what we're talking about.
the end game.
Nothing. It's another children's monster movie reference that you didn't understand.
I missed that one. Yeah.
Fantastic franchise, man.
Yeah, 21 films and
Are the Kings?
I count Homecoming into that franchise, which I loved. The Spider-Man.
Wait,
think
is
it's
this
part
is this
of
the
it.
same franchise as the Black Panther,
Yes.
Yes.
It's part of the same universe. And it's
the Iron Man?
they did such a good job. Great job. Oh, Spencer Dinwiddie proposed that there should be no NBA games the day that movie comes out, which is awesome.
Which movie?
Endgame.
And which one's the Avenger in?
all of them.
They're all
They're
in
called
it.
the Avengers. Plural. There's more
Oh,
than
gotcha. So there's not just the Avenger.
They all have different costumes, different names, and different superpowers.
and different timelines and dimensions mostly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like True Detective 3.
It's like quadruple.
It's like if you meshed True
Frontier.
Detective with Rick and Morty.
Yeah, there's space travel.
He hasn't seen any of that shit either. Do you only watch True Detective?
I didn't even watch True Detective.
Oh, God.
I watched the first episode and bailed, which I think was shrewd.
No, the last episode was great. I thought it was so sweet. Me and Jordan have argued about this. I know. Did we do this on the air? Did we just do this?
I'm
We
going to say,
may-
I'm
we
gonna
may
say
have.
we definitely did. it
Really,
on the air.
really quick, while we're on the topic of superheroes and television, The Umbrella Academy.
My Chemical Romance.
My Chemical Romance, Gerard Way.
I love that band. I
Isn't it
love that band.
Getting scathing reviews.
It's not good. It's not good.
Oh, really? I loved it.
Okay. Well, so here's the thing, right? It's not for my sensibility. So I was like, this is so exciting for so many people. I just can't get in.
I found it to be just so morose and bummer. It was like that show This Is Us, but with shitty kids with supernatural or superpowered abilities. And also, like, it's one of those things like typical of TV these days where it like takes 2 or 3 episodes to start cooking or to get invested, and then there's like a 5-episode stretch of meandering like bullshit and
Origin
then,
story.
Yeah, and then everything happens in the last
Yeah.
like episode and a half.
Just as a futile attempt to tie things back to basketball.
I have so much more to say about this.
Hold on, I was going to say, but no, it's tied. It's tied. Is our collective infatuation with superheroes the same as our infatuation with world-class athletes?
Wait, that was your attempt at doing that?
I think it was well done.
You want to talk about Dwight Howard now? You segued to Superman?
No. I'm saying, isn't this why we like basketball as well? The same thing? Supernatural powers of leaping and
Different
shooting and
colored
running and
uniforms,
jumping?
yeah.
You mean admiring people who can do things we can't? Yeah, that's
Okay.
like the same as like being crazy about Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. Like,
You're a
Joe
you're a
Satriani.
Stones guy.
well, yeah, Joe Satriani, exactly. Jimi Hendrix. It's yeah.
Did you say Joe Satriani?
Joe Satriani? Steve Vai?
Yngwie Malmsteen.
How you say surfing with the aliens?
Yeah, back to the Avengers
You're-
universe.
You're right.
So, like, I think with the Umbrella Academy, where we're cooking now, Ben.
Didn't even mean that,
But it bums me out in the same video game way where, like, the storytelling really dumbs down again. So it feels like we're going backwards. Like, I'm really happy we got 7.5 hours of Christopher Nolan Batman stuff. I thought that was really fun. Umbrella Academy is like, yo, talk about bummers.
Go off.
I did the entire Ricky Gervais movie show the other day, and then I went into Christopher Robin. Have you guys fucking seen Christopher Robin?
No,
You cannot watch it. It's like Marley and Me.
Oh, well, you just offered Jordan what they call a challenge.
I
Yeah.
challenge
Have
you.
you accepted this challenge
Did
to
you
not
grow up
watch
with
it?
Winnie the Pooh?
yeah.
Oh, you can't
He
watch
lived
it.
next door to me. He was on the other side.
Yeah. You can't watch it. The thing is like fucking crushing.
Oh, see, I like crushing.
Oh, yeah, maybe we can talk about it when I get back from China after I crush those dumplings. But it was like Marley and Me, man. It's called Radio
I was like,
Baby.
Is Kuo being like racist against Asians? I don't even know.
No, I want to crush some dumplings, man. I'm going right to Din Tai Fun. Anyway, back to basketball, man. What do you want to say about Dwight Howard?
What else you got? You had like a good.
You want a turnover talk?
You got a good 2 minutes.
Oh yeah, do you want to do some turnover talk?
Let's do it. Let's turn this pod over back to basketball.
I felt like the dumplings to turnovers thing was like right there, and we kind of missed it. It was really close. So,
you're talking pastries.
yeah.
Dumpling is not a pastry, but I'm willing to go there.
I'm saying it was close. It wasn't. It didn't quite line up. But there was an article in 538.
A filled pouch.
Pouch in it.
Pouch in it.
Pouch Gasol.
Nope.
Nope. Didn't work.
No.
Didn't work. No, anyway.
You better bring this back to the perfect pod. We're teetering right now.
No, all right, so 538 wrote an article talking about how the last 3 seasons in the NBA have the lowest turnover ratio of all time. Of all time. So turnover ratio means the percentage of your possessions that end in a turnover. It's not per game.
What's it per?
Like counting like a
per
unit.
100 possessions, how many times you turn it over.
Okay.
So it's a percentage. Any speculation from the peanut gallery
Go ahead.
on why
Go ahead.
turnovers are down
Dumpling crusher.
to a historic low?
I think because there's certain teams that don't give themselves the opportunity to turn it over by like dribbling too much. I think it's like the 7 seconds or less thing, especially when you have people just bombing so many threes early in the shot clock. I think it leads to fewer turnovers and like more rebounding. Like the trend of the game is going that way, and I love it. And like there's people who evaluate players more and more on their turnover percentage because I think like that stat is so undervalued. Like back in the day when like the NBA started in 1996, we had players like Allen Iverson, and you had these Stephon Marbury. You had
Right,
these
because prior to 1996, we can't call that
What's
the
basketball?
NBA.
No.
That was
they were like
that was some sport where they would like throw the ball between their legs and they would shoot foul shots off of one leg.
it was like jazz. They were like moving cool and like shooting off 1 foot, like whatever.
Yeah, it was a bunch of interchangeable white dudes with bowl cuts, kind of synchronized dancing almost.
Yeah, they were like snapping like beat poets, just trying to like get those shots up, baby. But but I think it's effective. Like so, in 1996 when the NBA started, we had like these high usage players and players who would dribble around a lot and isolate and hold the ball quite a bit, so defenses would adjust. And we used to say like we could live with Iverson's turnovers because he gives us so much more on the court. Like he passes and shoots, and like that's just the byproduct of a wonderful player who has the ball in his hands. He turns it over a lot, like Kobe. Now we realize turning it over is giving up a possession, and all the NBA cares about is possessions. You need the ball to score.
As someone who has complained about the rise of three-pointers, Jordan, is the lower turnover something that you have noticed that pleases you as someone who is an aesthete of the game?
Well, as a noted stat crusher, no, I haven't noticed at all.
Sounds like a company flow record.
Well, see, like I'm kind of with Jordan on this. I don't think Stat Crusher Deluxe.
Plus, Stat Crusher Plus, old people.
End-to-end Stat Crushers.
What a song. Burners, I mean, not Stat Crushers.
End-to-end burner accounts.
The
Shout out to LP. Cool career, man.
very, very
Friend
cool.
of the pod. Awesome.
Very cool. It's true. No, it's true. It's true.
I mean,
That was another joke that had nothing to do with LP, who is a great guy.
No, I mean, obviously the eye test, I haven't noticed turnovers, but if you think about it, I wish I had a more like, I don't know, interesting take than just agreeing with Dumpling Crusher.
Yeah, it's always the worst.
can't
But
wait.
but
I could be
really, it's just like
7, 8, 9, 10.
how many
Test me,
how
test
many in
me.
one sitting?
Well, okay, so Din Tai Fun has like small like soup dumplings, and they're very cheap. So like in one sitting, I think I can crush like 9 or 10. I've seen people take down like 15, 16. They are so delicious, man. New York needs one of those restaurants. You guys know what I'm talking about?
No.
It's like this famous chain from Taiwan. Now there's 2 in L.A. I think there's one in Australia.
It's only a matter of time before that comes.
Hudson
New York,
Yards.
right?
Oh, did we shit on Hudson Yards yet? There's so
We
much
haven't.
to
Can I
talk
get
about.
one turnover take before we move on?
Go on.
Yes. Oh, wait. You need mine. Really quick.
Okay, great.
It's what Andrew said. It's people not dribbling the ball so much. There's more opportunity, and it's easier to take the ball off somebody who's dribbling than it is to intercept a pass. And passes
steal.
passes are coming so crisp.
Deflections are up.
Yeah.
Because of the style of play.
Yeah, I thought the article kind of goes
And
into-
also, but they're also Let me get it off.
Go
Flush it
off,
out.
King.
Get it off.
Go off, King.
And then exactly.
Lord.
There's no longer 30 seconds in which to turn the ball over. It's just like if you have crisper passing, people not dribbling the ball off their foot,
Higher pace.
higher pace, and less time per possession to turn the ball over, ergo, you will be turning it over less.
What I thought was interesting about looking back at the sort of turnovers per game, turnover percentage, and pace, if you go back 20 years, it's basically the same turnovers per game. And prior to that, you can see when pace would go up, number of turnovers per game would go up too. They were completely related. As the game slowed down, turnovers per game slowed down. But what's interesting about the last 5 years is a total anomaly where pace has gone up, but turnovers per game have stayed the same. And that's what's kind of fun, is that like it's a complete departure from the entire history of the NBA over the last 5
That's
years.
a decent sample size.
Which is interesting. And I don't even know if they talked about this in that article, but I think it's totally the rise of the three-pointer. But it's also like when you're dribbling and playing in a game, if it kind of makes sense that there'd be the same amount of turnovers if you're putting up shots. It's not like there's less dribbling.
Right.
It's kind
There's
of like
just more no,
well,
but
what
the
if you
nature of the
measured it
possession
against-
changes. The
yes, that's
nature
what
of
I'm
it.
saying. It's like you're still dribbling up, you're still doing the same stuff, but you're shooting more, and there's less, and there's more possessions. So it's like the turnover percentage goes down, but like you're actually turning it over the same amount.
The predictability of an action after dribbling for like 15 seconds is probably higher than dribbling like 7 seconds.
Well,
right?
the teams that turn the ball over in the NBA are the ones that pass a lot. So like Philly and Golden State are always high on turnovers because they just pass the ball and
But
there's
that's
more
a
room
steal and
for
it's
someone
deflection.
to step out of bounds,
Right.
to mishandle a pass, whatever. And I just was more thinking like, I get it. It's the same amount of turnovers. When people are dribbling up the ball and shooting it, they aren't pounding the ball in the paint into the post where it gets tipped away or something. I'm like, turnovers are actually the same as they've always been. There's just more shots up. The shots and turnovers have now grown independent, which I thought was fascinating. Not fascinating, but kind of interesting.
I mean, you seem kind of fascinated.
It was interesting to realize.
Has Hudson Yards grown independent of New York City and Manhattan? Are you guys outraged like everyone else was outraged about this new development in the West Side?
You mean like development as in the building development?
It's like an enclosed community. Like
Yeah.
they want to create like a separate zip code.
It's been described as the Dubai of New York, and it's Javits Center South, kind of.
Okay, how do we do that? Jasso?
Kind of, but it's
North of
just
Chelsea?
It's what
No
mixed.
Che-
It's mixed residential, commercial, high rises, luxury stores, expensive restaurants, condos that are probably going.
This is where
for
the
like,
shed is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's amazing that the main piece of art that this is clustered around just looks like a huge garbage can.
Yeah, the Hive.
Yeah, I mean, it literally just looks like a mesh
called the Hive,
wire
right?
trash can.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, wasn't the idea to create a privatized Lincoln Center and then build a bunch of shit around it that nobody really wants or needs?
And like
And they get a fucking subway stop, and we can't even get a Second Avenue one for 25 goddamn years.
And taxpayers'
it's
money was,
different than Amazon.
but it was like still billions went into this.
For sure. Years ago, when the developer proposed it, I remember reading an article being like, everyone's protesting this thing in the Lower East Side and like Williamsburg. Like, I'm doing something so much worse and no one's saying anything. Do we think like the West Side is a lost cause?
Well, yeah, I mean, that area there was nothing, so I feel like that's why.
But we fought the Jet Stadium. Remember Bloomberg wanted to build a stadium there, and we were like, hell, not on our watch.
One of the New York Times articles about it delves into that a little bit, that people had weariness over fighting off the Olympic Stadium. There was also kind of a fear that business might not have returned to New York after 9/11. So there was a leniency towards this project that was very different from the immediate blowback from the Amazon announcement that Cuomo and de Blasio, when they had tried to put it in Queens, and people immediately revolted against that. And this one just kind of, as you said, went under the radar, and now there's this glistening city for the uber rich sitting there on the west side.
It's like this old white lady in Utah. We select what we're outraged by. So we're so outraged by Amazon and the developments near the Manhattan Bridge. And then this just happens. And like, oh yeah, we always knew there was an old lady who owned the Jazz, but Brent Brown should be fired.
You know what what's always been weird to me is who's making the decisions to allow a developer to build a condo on a block in Bed-Stuy that has nothing but brownstones. No one in the community wants that, and yet it happens. And that's always what's strange to me is, what's the decision making? Is it the community board? How is that possible? Like, you go to Paris, you
Felicity
can't,
Huffman's paying them off.
but it's nuts. It's like no one wants it, and yet here it is, a big glass-covered condo on a block that was all uniform. And if you look at Paris, you have to build things a certain way. They have to fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. And I know,
but you look around New York. The history of New York buildings, you could be on any block and nothing's the same. It's not like San Francisco or like, say, Paris. There's never been any like uniform building code,
but there was
which is why it looks how it looks.
Well, yes, but also, for example, the Lower East Side is like, they changed the law of how high you could build buildings, like I think in the aughts. And as soon as that happened, we got those high rises. Before then, you couldn't build over a certain height.
And that's why the East Village has remained intact in terms of those kind of heights, because they did not do that. And they protected and said, you can't build 7-story, 10-story places.
Yeah.
Lower East Side and Williamsburg did, and now you have these just monster developments that have really changed the dynamic in a way that the East Village hasn't.
Regal on Delancey Street.
The edge, man. Baby.
Yo, it's crazy, like, I mean, we are old people, so we sound like old people. And I'm not even mad at, like, I live, like, right near Essex Crossing, I guess they're going to call that, like, Regal area near Delancey and Essex. But, like, Hudson Yards, like, I don't have energy to fight, like, the tide of change. I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. There's a mini Hong Kong there. Like, I don't know how to fight this. Like, what do we do?
You could get your big board out and write, like, irate messages on it.
The KBB?
But the
I mean, it worked for Amazon.
But the Lower East Side and Williamsburg, that is a little bit different though than that whole development. Like, we don't love that, but whatever, fuck it. It's up there in the middle of nowhere.
There was nothing there to
We should
begin with.
go.
Like,
There's cool things there too.
Maybe it's a big mall. Like,
Yeah.
like
I like how you started out disgruntled and now you've just
No, I've never been disgruntled about this, but
it doesn't
unique.
bother me. It just seems kind of weak.
But it's cool how, like, it doesn't feel American, and I think that's interesting. It feels like whatever I've heard of Hong Kong or Dubai. Like, this kind of opulence is like not something I've recognized in New York ever. Like the building of verticality, I'm just like, yo, cool. Like, I'm glad to see change, but like, there's sympathy. There's sympathy for the things that it hurts too.
But if you look at, Jane Jacobs and her sort of forecasting and takes on how to build a city, everything we do is pretty much wrong. And we know that's wrong because we know condos make a neighborhood garbage.
Yeah.
We know that. It's happened to New York City over the last 20 years. They're bad.
But it's too valuable not to do.
Right, but exactly. So it's like we're just going to keep doing this thing that everyone knows sucks, that does not build communities, that builds these icy, impersonal neighborhoods that are kind of just wealthy people parking money. We know they're trash. So it's like, cool, go do it up in that area where there's nothing. But that's why I object to it in like the Lower East Side.
And this is NBA relevant in terms of like parody, right?
Yes. Go on. Let's hear this. Go.
this false premise of like making things better by
Fucking bring it home. Bring it home.
by controlling salaries with a cap or a lottery or competitive balance. But it's too profitable to accrue all these good players
Reel it in.
at the risk of hurting the thing. Like I always think, like when you remodel an apartment,
Okay.
it's you want clean lines. Everything's like modern. Blade Runner. Think about like Stanley Kubrick, like just like modern. And then you get the flu, and you're like, I wish everything was fuzzy. I just feel terrible. I wish this wasn't this cold right angle thing. That's where like modernism kind of lets us down, right? Like a block is perfect if it's the way we think it should be, but then people get the flu and do whatever they want.
I'm just saying, I want to live in a place where you've got an old woman leaning out of the second floor window
Who owns the Utah Jazz?
saying Redaelli, and then like throws like a little orange down to him, which Jordan like unpeels
You're
walking down
fucking
the street.
tripping, man. You're living in your Billy Joel Matter of Trust East Village fucking fantasy. Like
I'm just saying that's what
like
we
you had
want.
like a warm summer day with someone with a Walkman and fucking roller skates, like hands you an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
Get over it, man.
Come on, give me like a yellow Sony Walkman. We can even share the headphone jack. Now you're warming up to it.
Yeah, like share the headphone jack. Like no more dongles. I want to go back to a simple time where it was dongle free.
Oh, you're a pro dongle guy?
No, I'm not pro dongle.
Okay, then welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Let's share a headphone.
Is dongles the
I would
tipping
never
point?
share a dongle with you. maybe quote.
You're not down for dongles?
No.
I'm D for D.
Perfect.
Dongles
We
are
did it.
useful.
We did it. We nailed it. The perfect pod.
Perfect.
Quo, we're gonna pick up that analogy that you were making next week.
Dongling it.
As soon as you get back, we're gonna hit you right back on that analogy between clean lines, the NBA, architecture, and the
Oh,
flu.
forever. Let's
Really
do
quick,
this.
really quick. Crushing the dumplings with the soup dumplings. Do you bite the little nib off and then suck the soup out, or do you just put the whole thing in?
I pinch-
Let's
That's a great
let the
question.
people know
For the first
from
few-
an authentic Asian how to actually eat them.
This is an authentication process.
Yes.
So they come out piping hot. So the first one you pinch with the chopsticks. You let the soup go into your spoon. You sip and you hold the dumpling with your chopsticks. You sip the spoon and then you eat the dumpling. But then when they cool down, you just eat it all in one go.
What about taking the really hot dumpling and kind of putting it into the soy sauce to cool it off? Is that a thing?
No. You're white. Too white.
I didn't come up with this. I
Never you.
I feel like I've seen it done. I wasn't like I,
I mean,
said,
you're
put it
down
in
with the
soy
Yang
sauce.
Gang, so like you tell me.
I love cookies.
Oh yeah, he might have his Yang Gang membership revoked for that one.
That's not my thing. Someone told me to do it. I was like, I don't think that's
Oh yeah,
what you
you
do.
just asking for a friend. Get out the fuck out of here.
True as an Asian.
Cookies.
Cookies.
He was an Asian.